Breeding with fast-growing bucks can be more lucrative than breeding with whatever buck you have. A fast-growing buck will be a good investment for your homestead. Kids can gain 0.4 pounds or more a day. This means they will gain quickly and grow heavy. Choosing the right goats to breed. Sometimes it pays to carefully choose a better bloodline and pay more over buying a full herd for a reduced price. On your homestead, you will probably want to start small. The ideal size for a herd of boar goats is 1 buck per 25 does. But you can start with 1 doe and 1 buck and gradually grow your herd. Talk to your neighbors and your vet before committing to a purchase to make sure the seller is someone known and recommended by people you trust. Always inspect the goats you are planning on purchasing and look at their housing situation at the breeder or seller. If the conditions are dirty, you stand a better chance of bringing illness back to your homestead than you have of raising healthy boar goats. Take note of the hair. It should be smooth and glossy. All the eyes and noses should be clear of any discharge. The goats should not be coughing, and they should not have any problems breathing. None of the animals should be limping. They should have good hooves and every goat should be moving about comfortably. The goats should all be a good weight with well-developed muscles. When purchasing does, I recommend that you buy a doe who has kidded at least once to make sure she is not infertile. You should not buy a new doe who is in her last 30 days of pregnancy or who has kidded within the past 30 days. They are very vulnerable to disease in this period. Ask questions. Ask about previous pregnancies and deliveries. Ask about the health of her offspring and about her treatment of kids. Is she attentive? Did she have any problems during pregnancy, delivery, and nursing? Is she a good milk producer? Ideally, your new doe should be 10 to 36 months old. When purchasing a buck, look for a clear, not crossbred, bloodline. Rather spend a little more on a buck that is big as his offspring will follow his growth rate and carry his characteristics. The color of the buck does not matter if you are breeding for meat, but you should see a broad chest, long loin, and deep muscles. Buying an older buck is significantly more expensive than buying a young buck. This is because the buck's records will show if he is a good breeder, the quality of his offspring, and his kid size. In proven bucks, the youngsters, can be a roll of the dice. Take your time and check his bloodline. Get his health assessed before you commit to the purchase. Breeding season. Because they are polyestrous, they do not wait until a specific time of year to start breeding. In fact, goats move in faster than the boys on The Bachelorette. For a doe to breed, all she needs is exposure to a buck. As soon as exposure happens, the doe immediately comes into heat. This can happen any time of the year from January to February, July to August, and/or August to October. In her lifetime, a doe can produce kids for 6 or more years. Kidding season. Boar goats are very easy breeders and require little or no human intervention when kidding. You may need to help by getting the kids to stand immediately and draining their mouths and noses by holding them up by the back legs. This just allows gravity to drain the mouth and nose of amniotic fluids. You may also need to help the kids latch onto their mom if she is too tired to help them. Normally, when a boar doe kids for the first time, she will only have 1 kid. After that, most of her pregnancies will result in twins, triplets, or even quadruplets, although this is more rare. Because there are normally 2 kids born from each pregnancy, you need to make sure that each kid has access to enough colostrum and milk. If there are more than 2 kids, you may need to bottle feed the runt or place that kid with a wet nurse, an unrelated doe who is still producing milk even though her kids have been weaned. Because does go into heat every 18 days, they can be bred twice every 36 days. I do not recommend this. I prefer to give a break between kidding. That way the doe has a chance to heal from the delivery and wean her kids. She will be stronger for the next pregnancy if she has been given a little bought time. Rams are normally weaned at 12 to 15 weeks, and female kids are weaned at 15 to 18 weeks. Separating females is not required for most of the pregnancy. About 2 to 4 weeks before kidding, you should move the does to an isolation pen where they and their kids will not be harmed in fights. They will have to stay separate for 4 weeks after kidding. If you do see fighting before then, go ahead and separate them immediately. Avoid spontaneous abortions by increasing the volume of food they consume and by decreasing the stress on the doe by creating a calm environment for the doe and kids. Boar goat housing. Your Boer goats should always have access to shelter from the sun, rain, snow, and wind. Obviously, the best case scenario is that the goats spend their days outdoors foraging and climbing. On a practical level, this may not always be an option. A properly built barn will not only protect your goats from the weather, but it will also protect them from predators. If you are looking at raising your goats indoors, they will need at least 20 square feet per animal. This would apply mainly in winter. If your goats are free to roam in the daytime and only come in at night, they will need 10 to 12 square feet per animal. Remember, do not build their shelter too close to the fence that keeps them in. They will jump on the roof of the shelter and jump the fence. Housing Boer goat bucks. Housing a buck can be a very frustrating thing to do. If they can smell a doe that is in heat, good luck. That is a real problem since does go on heat every time they are around a buck. Given the weight and sheer determination of a Boer goat buck, they will break through wood and wire without much effort at all. You should always create a no-man's land between pens of 20 feet or more. This is to prevent sharing a fence. Bucks will do whatever it takes to cover does over shared fences. Keep your fence posts close together to add strength to the structure. And consider using pipe rather than wood as the goats will eat the wood. Adding a low-voltage electric fence will also help keep your bucks at bay. Always remember that Boer goats are social animals. Try not to house bucks individually. It is better to either house multiple bucks together, not too many, you do not want to set the scene for a riot, or house your buck with cattle, pigs, or even chickens. They just need some activity and chatter around them to keep them calm. Fencing for Boer goats. Fencing for your Boer goats is important for keeping goats in and predators out. Boer goats do not typically jump as high as some other goats. They will, however, still jump, climb, and lean. Which is why you should pay attention to your fenced-in pens. They often stand on their back legs to reach leaves. If they are using the fence to do this, you should ensure the fence can take the weight. For this reason, the design and materials used are very important. One other thing to remember when putting up your fence is that goats chew everything. For Boer goats, your fences should be 4 feet or higher, especially if you are housing other species together with your Boer goats. Razor or barbed wire will not keep your goats penned. In fact, it will only harm them as they are consumed with the need to hook up with the pretty girl next door. Use woven wire to build your fence as it is strong enough to tolerate any attempt to break out. Goats love to stick their heads through the openings on fences. They are curious about the world around them, and like to chat to other animals face to face. The problem is, putting their heads through the fence is easy enough. Taking their heads out with their big horns is a whole other issue. Make sure the opening between fences is no larger than 2 by 4 inches. Your fence posts can be no further than 8 feet apart. Goats love to scratch themselves on fence posts. For this reason, your corner posts should be cemented in. Depending on the size of the pen, you may want to cement in a few posts along each side of the pen to add structural integrity. Controlling predators. Protecting Boer goats is much easier than protecting other goat species. Their weight makes them harder to carry off. However, given the opportunity, coyotes, wolves, bobcats, and mountain lions will attack any goats. The kids are at risk of being carried off by foxes and even eagles. If you live in an area known for predators, the smart thing to do is to build a fully enclosed shelter or barn to turn the goats into at night when most predators are out hunting. Electric fences will also help provide a layer of protection for your goats. Many farmers are using Great Pyrenees dogs as they are nocturnal and were bred to navigate rough terrain to protect their goats. How to jumpstart your small enterprise. If you want to start a small business raising Boer goats for meat or for milk, here are some items to think about as you plan for your newcomers. What condition are your pastures in? You need to ensure that you only purchase enough goats for the size of land you have available.